Major funding for this program was provided by Friends of Iowa Public Television.
I came to this country in 1953, and the first town I lived was Fort Worth, Texas. And in 1953, I could tell you some stories that I witnessed, and I was just shocked.
There are a lot of experiences that I've had and I've had with my children, but I always have tried to come from the aspect that people do it out of ignorance and not out of hurtfulness. And so that I've tried to teach my kids to look at things that way.
Because I know that we can, as human beings, be better than we are, and we can treat each other better, and we can treat each other with more respect, and I think we just have, in some way, forgotten how to do that. Hello, I'm Dr. Rochelle Pope, and I'm pleased to be your host for this special presentation that we're calling Carefully Untaught. What you're about to view is a collection of video clips from a racial sensitivity workshop that was done in January of 1993 in Des Moines, Iowa. A 4-hour workshop was conducted by myself and Dr. Amy Reynolds. Dr. Reynolds and I work with a consulting firm that specializes in multicultural and diversity training. Our goals are to help people learn to live and to work with each other more effectively. In late January, Dr. Reynolds and I conducted this workshop with a small group of diverse people from all over Iowa. The goals for that workshop are the same goals that we have for this program. And the first is to increase our own personal awareness of racism, of what it is. And it's also to increase our understanding of racism as a system and the role we each have in maintaining that system. Now, before we begin, I want to offer a brief definition of racism. Keep in mind that we're going to expand our understanding of racism throughout this program as we listen to the workshop participants, as we listen to their personal experiences, and the way in which they understand racism in Iowa. In the United States, racism is both the attitudes, the way we think and feel, and the behaviors, the ways in which we act, that support the superiority of one race to the detriment of another race. It's not just at a personal level. It's not just about how I treat you. More importantly, it's at an institutional level. Racism is a systematic exclusion of people of color in this country from sources of economic, social, political, and cultural power. You know, sometimes in order to understand something as personal and as complex as racism, it's helpful to use activities to help people struggle with their own personal understandings and definitions of racism. During the sensitivity workshop that we did in January, we did one such activity. We called it the party. We asked for 3 volunteers, and then we asked them to leave the room. The instructions for those individuals staying in the room were that they were to imagine that they were at a reunion with people that they know well, but they haven't seen in 5 or 6 years. There are going to be some other people who try to join the party later, but they weren't a part of their group. The partygoers are told to mingle and to talk with the people that they haven't seen in a while and to enjoy their company. The purpose of this activity was to focus the participants on the experience and the feelings of being excluded and interacting with unknown people, and then to try to help them make the connections between that experience and racism. Here you can see one partygoer, Adar, who arrived late to the party.
Actually, I didn't have anything in common with anybody except for one person. And I thought, well, if I stay with this person, you know, it wouldn't be very fair to see how, you know, how's everybody moving, interacting with everybody.
Exclusion is a pretty clear part of racism. Often people feel excluded because people won't let them into the group. And other times, people exclude themselves because they're afraid of how they might be viewed or because there's not enough people in the circle that look like them.
I've been here long enough that sometimes I forget I'm different. and someone said, "Where you from?" And that right away, puts me, really make me defensive. That kind of question puts me in a place where I have to explain myself, why I'm in this country even. Sure. And I have to tell them that I still have a right to be here. I mean, that kind of makes it very uncomfortable.
Well, one thing I have a problem with is you could go and you'd be having a great time, but somebody always wants to say, "Do you know so-and-so?"
Right.
And no, I don't know everyone in Des Moines. I don't know everyone on my block. I don't know everyone on the next block. It's just like, I'm a person who's here, and I don't know every black person that you think I should know.
I'd rather you be up front and say it to my face, because I can deal with you whether I know you're racist or whether I know what your thoughts are. I'd rather have you deal with me honestly, and I know that that's how you feel, than you to deal with me dishonestly and say other things behind my back.
There are so many commonalities and differences among people, much more than we might think or assume when we initially look at each other. I can look at you across the room, and I think I know who you are, based on just how you look, and I'm sure you can do the same thing with me. Automatically, almost, we begin to make assumptions about the other person and how she or he might be similar or different from us. In many ways, we're afraid of differences. In other ways, we're attracted to differences. To illustrate this point, in the workshop we used another activity, and it was called Ups and Downs. During this exercise, one of the facilitators read a list of different groups or different people and asked people to stand if they identified with that group. Almost every time we do this exercise, people are surprised by how people identify themselves, because it doesn't always seem to fit with their preconceived notions of who that person was. In order to increase our understanding of racism, it's important to grasp some basic principles or assumptions, like the ones that we shared with the workshop group. We believe that by understanding these basic assumptions, we're better able to identify racism in all of its forms, and then we can move beyond feelings of anger or guilt or powerlessness or helplessness, and we can see what we need to do to end racism. Let's look at two of the assumptions. The first two are that racism isn't our fault. It just isn't. The second assumption is that differences are not what separate us. Regardless of our race or ethnicity, we've been taught racism, either consciously or unconsciously, from the time that we were very young. As children, we were taught to fear or distrust those who were of a different race than us. Often as children we fought those messages, and we were curious, sometimes even excited by people who were of a different race. I know that sometimes children run up to one another and compare skin tones, and they put their arms next to each other and they say, "Hey, are you sick? Is that why you're so light-skinned?" Or a white child might turn to a child of color and says, "Hey, does that come off? Is that dirty?" They don't understand, and they're real willing to learn. As children, we learned a lot of messages. We learned them by silence, by someone telling us to shush. When we noticed someone who was a different color and someone said, "Hey, shh, don't talk about that," or because no one else talked about them. But regardless of what we learned as children, we must take responsibility now for our thoughts and our behaviors as adults. Our task isn't to feel guilty for what we learned as children. That's silly. And it's certainly not to be angry at those people who taught us those messages unconsciously. More importantly, our role is to move past guilt and to move past anger and to take action as responsible adults in order to end racism. The second assumption that we talked about reminds us that it's not our differences that separate us. We're all different. People are different. And differences just are. Yet in this culture, often we're taught that difference is less. It's less than, it's deficient, it's not as good. There are other cultures that don't teach those same things. They see difference as something to be revered because they notice there's strength in that difference. One of our famous writers, Audre Lorde, she was a black feminist writer, poet. One of the things that she said was that it's not our differences that separate us, but rather it's our inability to recognize, to accept, and to celebrate those differences. In dealing with differences, there is a strong tendency for people to stereotype others. They make generalizations about an individual, and then they assume it to be true for all of the members of that group. An example of that we could use is women drivers. One of the stereotypes about women is that they can't drive. And so if you see a car accident and a woman is involved in that car accident, you say, see, women can't drive. But at the same time, if there's a car accident and a man is involved in that accident, we say, Bill can't drive. Or, Bill can't drive once again, he's in another accident. But we never make that assumption about all men and not being able to drive. One of the pieces about stereotypes is that often that same behavior that is seen in one group is overlooked or downplayed or named differently with another group. What stereotypes do is that they interfere with genuine relationships because they create false images and expectations of people who are different. Stereotypes oversimplify the complexity of humanity. Institutional racism leads to the structuring of societal norms and expectations around a certain culture. In this culture, that's typically white cultural norms. All that is white is perceived as what is norm or normal in this society. There's music and there's rap music. There's music and there's salsa music. A perfect example of this is also something as simple as Band-Aids. Did you ever notice what color Band-Aids really are? Especially the kind that they advertised as non-visible or invisible. Almost always, they're a very light beige or a very light tan. And that color just does not blend into a skin that is black or dark brown. Because societal norms are defined according to white standards, then white individuals experience a certain amount of privilege in their daily lives that people of color don't. For example, I went to college at a predominantly white campus, and there, some of the white students in my classes had the privilege of being anonymous. I was in a class with 399 other students taking first-year biology. Whenever I was late, the professor and everybody else in the class noticed. Whenever I gave the wrong answer, everyone knew who it was that gave the wrong answer. If I didn't know what was going on or asked a question that wasn't so smart, everybody knew. Being white in that classroom gave the rest of the students the privilege of being anonymous or unnoticed. As a person of color in that room, I didn't have that privilege. Regardless of what I was doing, I stood out and I was constantly noticed.
I can walk into a department store that I work in, and they're going to follow me, and I work there. You can walk into the same department store and you don't have anything to do with it except you're going in there to buy. They're not going to follow you. So honestly, he can walk into that department store and they're going to follow him. But he can walk in that department store and they're going to look at him.
I'm an American. I was born and raised here on this soil. When does my time come that I'm just an American, just like you? When does the time come that my child is just an American that was born and raised on this soil, educated in this system, lives here, and that's what he is, an American, not an African American, not a Spanish American, not a whatever, just an American, period. You know, when is it ever going to come to that?
As long as a lot of whites are in denial on the differences and on the privilege, they can't learn.
Exactly.
And it seems like a lot of
I agree
people
with
that I talk to are definitely in denial. They don't think there's such a thing as white privilege. They think there's an advantage of being a minority.
The remaining two assumptions regarding racism are, we are all targets and perpetrators of oppression, and also that racism is learned and it can therefore be unlearned. Let's look at that first one. At one time or another, we are all going to be targets of oppression in this broader sense, and we will all perpetrate oppression in some form. We can look at children or the very old and recognize that they experience some form of disempowerment and exclusion. And that is how most of us will experience that. Many of us experience other oppressions as well, be it by race or religion or class or gender or sexual orientation or disability. Because of the complexity of oppression, many of us are also members of dominant groups such as men or Christians or white or heterosexual or non-disabled. And then we have the privilege that goes with that group membership, whether or not we want it. An important point is it's too simple, it's far too simple to identify one culprit or cause of oppression. Many people will say it's just the faults of white or just the fault of white men. I say that's too simple and it's wrong. We all play a role in supporting oppression and racism and in allowing it to continue. It's also true that we all play a role in ending racism as well. You know, I find this final assumption the most hopeful. There is nothing genetic or automatic about racism because racism is learned. And because it's learned, it can be unlearned. The cycle can be broken as long as we believe it can be broken and as long as we devote ourselves to that task.
I think that if we start very early for people to understand that people are people, that everyone has feelings, they have dreams, and they have goals, and it has nothing to do with color, then maybe we could begin to change things. But I don't think racism is ever going to go away anyway. But at least we can make it a little bit better by training ideals in the home. Start with the little people. You know, it's going to be their world, and they're going to have to live in it.
I disagree with you got to start with the young ones. I guess I used to think that a lot. You have to start with the young ones. But the young ones grow up.
We already have formed our opinion of how we feel, what we think, what we will do. We may change a little bit, but we're not going to change that much. And I still say it's going to take the new generation of people to make the world better.
In order to better understand racism, it's important to understand the other behaviors and attitudes that make it possible. Prejudice. Prejudice is one of the cornerstones of racism. Prejudice is a preconceived judgment or opinion, usually an unfavorable one, marked by suspicion or fear that anyone can have. Everyone has prejudices, and every group has prejudices, just like everyone has stereotypes. Racism is different than prejudice, but it's because it's an institutionalized act of prejudice. It's an enactment that is based on the fact that one group, in this culture, whites, have the institutional power to enforce their prejudices. Now, people of color in this country right now, they don't have the power to enforce their prejudices. Now, does that mean that people of color can't be prejudiced or bigoted? No. I know a lot of prejudiced and bigoted people of color. The point I'm making is that everyone can be prejudiced. I just think racism is different because of this power dynamic. If I were to define racism in another way, I would say it's power plus prejudice equals racism. And power is defined as the ability to control others. It includes personal or economic or cultural and institutional power or privileges. And not all groups in this society have the same power or privileges, either personally, economically, culturally, or institutionally. In order to sum up the process of dealing with racism, we offered a closing activity for the sensitivity session that we conducted. In this exercise, the participants were asked to hold hands in a circle and to keep the balloons afloat for as long as possible. They were told that if they break their hands apart, the exercise was over. Now, the purpose of this exercise is to offer a physical example as well as a visual image of what it was like to fight racism. When we asked the participants how it felt to keep the balloons afloat, they responded by saying it was exhilarating, or it was tiring, it was frustrating. They also highlighted how challenging the task was since their hands were connected, and what one of them chose to do affected the others. This exercise truly symbolizes what it's like to combat racism on both an individual and a group level. You know, when given the opportunity to discuss what they had learned in the racial sensitivity workshop, The participants had much to offer. Some of them focused on what they were going to continue to do and what they wanted to begin doing once they left the workshop. Most of them identified having learned or relearned something about their attitudes, their behavior regarding racism. For all of them, the experience clearly reinforced their commitment to ending racism. That's why they were there. They were committed to ending racism in their communities, in the state of Iowa, and in the country as a whole.
I plan to keep working, thinking about my own attitudes, those that unconsciously get in the way of my own work with people.
And I know I'll continue this. I was doing it before I had children, and I'll continue to do this even though at times I wake up at night and they're asleep and they look so innocent. Sometimes I just start crying because I don't know what's going to happen to them and how the society is going to work.
We need to contact some of our officials by letters and phone calls when things are happening. I think we all have a responsibility and a duty to make our voices known.
I feel like Dr. Martin Luther King said, and I can't say it exactly how he did, but I know I'm going to always rather come into contact with other races and other ethnic minorities or whatever, majorities too, and I believe in the rule, treat me as you want to be treated. And I feel I'm speaking right now as an African American with Indian heritage in my background also. I want my rights here and I want them now.
We all, every one of us, has an important role to play if we want to end racism. You know, as individuals, we can make a difference. We can make a difference if we commit ourselves to that process of learning more about ourselves, that self-exploration. And if we commit ourselves to unlearning all of the racism that we were taught as children. We need to also commit ourselves to changing the institutions in our community that perpetuate racism. They perpetuate it through their structures, their policies, and their memberships. Just stop for a second and think. How many clubs do you belong to that don't have people that are different colors or different races? When's the last time you read a book or watched a movie about a culture that wasn't your own? We need to also speak out against racism and injustice whenever we can and wherever we can. When we hear someone make a racist joke, we need to say, I don't think it's funny. When we hear someone make an insensitive comment, ask them to try again. You know, if we really want to end racism, if we really want to be successful at that, it's vital that we believe that our survivals are mutual. I know that I will not survive unless you do. I also know that we can end racism. I believe it.
My name is Beatriz Rodriguez, and I'm 10 years old. And this is my dad, Leo Rodriguez, and this is my mom, Rosie Rodriguez, and this is Irene Rodriguez, and that's Denise Rodriguez. They're my sisters. We came to Muscatine because my parents needed a job. And this is our house.
Well, we settled down here in Muscatine after we found a pretty good job, and we bought this house, and we just decided to settle here and start a new life, I guess.
When we got here, we our life totally changed.
This is my heart bed.
The difference between us living as migrant workers and now that we live and we have steady jobs or not depending on the season for the job and stuff is just that we've got stable jobs, we've got a nicer home, and that you're not up and moving all the time.
My hair. This is my dresser. You read, and you have to be very careful with these because they break very easily. I've been taking the saxophone for already
Since school started.
since school started. I like it because you could play different tunes on it, and it's fun cleaning it inside.
This is my friend, Benjamin.
Ben and Jacob are our neighbors. I like to go over there because Kim, she's the boss of the bakery at Samar, and we go over there and she makes great desserts.
Ben and Jacob happen to be a lot younger than these girls, but she still likes them to go over there. She'll call them up, or we'll have Ben over, or Ben will be here by like 8 o'clock in the morning on Saturday, ringing our doorbell asking for Irene. And so we get along really well.
I'm Irene taping them. So whoever wants to learn, I'm the one that's taping them, Irene.
We go to dances a lot here in Muscatine and in Davenport, and everybody's dancing. That's how we get all our ideas. We look at their dance, and me and Denise are looking at them. We look at them and see how they make their turns and everything. And then we're like, okay, we have to get that. And then we try it, and then it goes okay.
This is our tape that we made for Royal Nation Choir.
We were picked by our music teacher for Royal Nation, and they picked us like how we sang, and I was real excited when my mom told me that I was gonna be in that. I'm like, great, I love to sing. It's fun because you learn all new songs. It's like when we go perform at different places, like in Davenport or here, the Art Center, anywhere.
Of course, I want a lot better for my girls than what I have or had as I was growing up, and I'm sure Leo feels the same way. We're getting a new stove, and B's dad is downstairs with B's Uncle Frank, putting in a gas line because
It's kind of hard to be up here, and my folks, Rosie's folks, are all down there, and we do miss them. But you know, we came from almost nothing, so we're doing pretty good, real good now, and it's just something you gotta take. You know, you gotta change your life. You know.
My mother has this saying, and like where one person eats, 10 of us can eat. Show the box, so she'll see what you're making. But yet, materials, things. When you're a migrant family, it's family that matters. Togetherness, more so than anything else. And maybe that's not just for migrant workers. Maybe that's just for Mexican people, in our culture that brings us to think that way. But, you adapt it as a migrant worker.
The house, chicken, fruit, turkey.
My cousins live in Longtree, and they're named Linda and Frankie. And we go to their house, and we go see the animals first. And we go feed them, or we just go pet them, or then we go to the turkeys and we just look at them because we don't want to touch them.
So what are you guys playing? House.
We see them quite often. Maybe not the kids because they're in school and these guys are in school, but my brother comes over here maybe 2-3 times a week, and on weekends we usually go over there, or they come over here because my sister-in-law happens to be a great cook.
We eat our traditional, authentic Mexican food, plus we eat our American food. Color doesn't really show anything. What we eat doesn't show anything, that we're Hispanic Americans. This one.
For Thanksgiving, mashed potato, 2 turkeys, mashed potatoes, green beans, with gravy, mushroom, dressing, corn.
At least we got him and her. You know, that's really the closest relatives we got here, and I guess that's why we try and see it as often as we can.
This is my mom where she keeps God.
Our religion happens to be Catholic. We have very strong religious ties, and not necessarily because we're church-going people. As a migrant growing up, and we hardly ever got to go to church, but our religion and in our homes, wherever we were, my parents always had, our what we call an altar, which is where we have all our our candles and our saints. We might not always get to go to church, but our religion is at home, and it's part of our growing up. But I have taught the girls to behave and all that, and it's always included into the religion.
My mom works at the youth center. We go down out there after school with my mom.
Because we're alone here, and our family in South Texas, and we don't have anybody that I can say, well, I've got to go to a meeting and I've got to leave them. You know, the girls always have to be with me. They've been taught to behave.
We don't like to misbehave in front of people. That's why, because my mom, she'll get mad at the end and tell us not to misbehave.
In front of other people. So that's why I don't see any of it on the tape.
Right. I take USL because I have 2 languages, English and Spanish. Do you want this one?
Yeah. What class is this?
USL.
What does that mean?
English as a second language.
English is a second language.
At first, when I found out about it, it sort of got me upset to think that I know that grammar is very important and all that, and I thought, well, maybe they're trying to have them forget, their Spanish or lose their accent or something. I wasn't too sure what it all was about.
How about the word Pam? Map, right? Map. M-A-P, P-A-M.
I made it a point to find out, and it helps them that know both languages, and it has helped them to keep their Spanish and know the difference between the 2 languages. Leo and I speak Spanish quite a bit at home. They now realize that they know 2 languages. It almost gives them a sense of pride also.
Oh, yeah.
I know who I am. I'm very comfortable with who I am. I know a lot about my culture. I know a lot about my history, and I've, taught it to them. It scares me to think that there's a lot of non-educated people in the world that live a very narrow-minded life, and that would someday be out to hurt my children because of who they are.
Here's Junior, our dog.
The values we want them to take with them is, our respect, respect other people, and try to be something a lot better than we are now.
That wherever you go and however you succeed, you always have to look back and help the people that, come back and serve the Hispanic community or the community. They have to do that, because certainly we've gotten this far because other people have helped us, And so that's how I'd like to repay, you know, is by having taught my children to pay back.
I like them to understand that we're like any other family. We ain't really different from other people, that we are just like anybody else. My name is Gabriel Seart. I am 11 years old, and this is my mom, Roxanne Seart.
My tribal background is Grand Traverse Band, Anishinaabe, and Odawa from Michigan.
And this is my dad, Eric Seart, and my sister, Renelle. She is 6. She's 7.
I'm a member of the Siston-Wahpeton Sioux tribe from South Dakota.
I think I would want Iowans to understand that we are, as a family, are bicultural. We don't claim to be traditional. I think that is almost impossible in today's world, to be truly a traditional Native American person.
There's Mom starting to bead.
But also, I would like them to know that Native Americans were always changing. I think that there's a myth that we were always just this way or that way, but that we were always in the process of change, and whatever we define for ourselves as a people is Native American, even if it's contemporary.
I am proud to be an Indian. I think it's really pretty neat to be an Indian, because I think it's like being an Indian is kind of like being it's different from other people, and in a way I like being different from other people, and I just think that's pretty neat. I am proud to be an Indian.
I think it's important that Gabe carry culture forward. Whichever direction he chooses to go with that, however he feels to do it, is up to him. I don't dance at powwows.
What are you making, Gabe?
A pair of flesh.
Where fleshes were used by pretty much Plains people as containers. I'm interested in more of the arts and crafts. If he wants to get into that, and rather than dance or do everything as far as that's concerned, with what he does now and what I'm doing, and maybe even add to it, that's fine. But it's important that he learn something about it and carry it on. It'll help him. I believe that Native American people have a harder time with self-esteem and finding the value of themselves. They're probably not going to find it in the dominant world. I think they're going to have to find that from their native culture. I would probably say that one of the values that I'd like to see them have is just to value themselves, to find worth in themselves, and to be okay with who they are and what they do. And I think a lot of things will fall into place as long as they realize that.
Fourth grade, that's when I got into hockey because of Dad. He told me to watch a hockey game. He told me he's been watching hockey games on TV, and I sat down and watched one, and I just liked it. And I kept watching more of them, and then I started collecting hockey cards, and now I'm playing. And I just think it's neat. I just like it. I have thousands of cards. That last time I counted, I had 1,000 something. I can't remember. And I usually, I haven't bought packs. I've mostly bought individual cards. Mario Lemieux in it, because I just think he's the greatest.
What we have here is what they call a sweat lodge. This is where we come to purify our bodies, our minds, and spirits, and to get in better touch with our surroundings. We bring our young boys out here to guide them and to help them to learn these ways of our ancestors.
We taped the part where the children were helping the men set up the fire, where they were cleaning out the lodge, where they were going in to get some instruction before the actual ceremony. But no part of the ceremony itself was a part of that original taping. I think those daily, just kind of living things are almost, well, they're as important, maybe in some ways even more important than going to some of these occasional events. Just talking to the kids as we're doing things, or teaching them words, Indian words. Are you just Unshika?
No, be quiet. Man.
Are you Samna?
Man, she called me pitiful, and she said I stink. Just swift and say it, Mom.
Well, I keep a lot of my medicine in there and real special things. I use herbs a lot for teas and for healing and things like that. Just exposing the kids to those on a regular basis and talking about those kinds of things. When they are bringing work home from school, to talk about, the Native American perspective, or if there's an issue in the public, the Native American perspective on that.
I wore this shirt to school on Columbus Day. And it says, 500 years ago, the Americans discovered Columbus on their shores. How do you think they felt?
I always tell Gabe that for kids of color, for any child, that school is really important, and that you need that education to make it in this world, and it gives you a lot more choices, it gives you a lot more freedom.
Science. I like a little bit of math. Social studies I like.
Are there questions?
So is it kind of like bingo?
It's exactly like bingo.
All right. Yeah, Mom and Dad usually get me to study. They usually get after me and stuff. I try to remember to study. It's just, I just space it off sometimes. And they have to remind me to study. And sometimes I'll study.
This is the note that my kids left me. The values that are most important, I believe, to teach my children are the value of caring for themselves and for others, the value of hard work, working hard and not just for the sake of material things, but just the rewards of the intrinsic rewards that hard work brings. It's Gabe selling his hockey wreaths to raise money for hockey.
We're saving the earth.
Help her, Gabe. The value of developing a relationship with the Creator and having that be a part of your everyday life, a part of your being.
Save the earth.
Here, just a minute now, let me see the value of being a continual learner, you know, that learning never stops and that there's always lessons to be learned and that, you know, in this journey through life we'll have many teachers, some of them that we don't like, others that we love very much, but that they're all there to teach us lessons. I think the values of kindness and the values of generosity, those are the values that I would like to teach my children. My biggest fear for my children is that they will become victims of drug and alcohol addiction or violence, because that is, statistics show that people of color, and particularly Native American people, have really struggled with these issues. And I try to expose my children to a drug-free lifestyle, but yet talk to them very openly, because there's never drugs or alcohol in this house. With the great amount of addiction in both of our families, I don't feel that our children would stand a chance if they chose to use.
Toy, I forgot that. Oops, you fell down. See? Toast.
No.
Toast.
To the good food that Mom makes.
And I worry about the violence because Indian people have, and especially boys of color, have been the victims of a lot of violence in this country. And the average lifespan of especially males of color is very short. And I did not bring my children into this world to bury them. You know, my intentions are is that I will grow old and they will bury me.
To relieve most any common stomach problem, heartburn, upset stomach, and diarrhea. So
I think mostly my parents gave me lots of self-esteem by bringing me here and showing like what they went through there. I can go through anything in life. My name is Dawn Chonin called Dawn. I'm 13 years old. My youngest brother is Pasit Ntongsi. He's 11 years old. Oh gosh, you can't even. My oldest brother, Pasusak Ntongsi, is 16. My mom, Vang Ntongsi, and my dad, Ulom Ntongsi. We lived in Iowa for almost 13 years now. We left Laos to get to Thailand so we can get to America.
When we left, that time on January 27 day after she born. After that, we crossed the Mekong on June 18, 1979. Left to Thailand, stay in the camp 10 months and 9 days. After that, we come to America, came to America.
When we stay in the camp, and the first thing when I want to escape, you know, but I'm scared. But you think about your kids' future, you know, and they make you strong.
We're watching the Iowa Hawkeye game at 7 o'clock, so. In the summer, we go fishing a lot. And we usually like sit and watch TV a lot together. I do a lot of cooking, mostly for my brothers because they get hungry after school. And I usually make noodles with meat and broccoli and any kind of vegetables I can find in the refrigerator. And I add Laotian spice and stuff, like fish sauce and something that is brown. I don't know what to call it, and something else. I don't know what you call it, that either. And sugar, just anything I can find. Oh, yeah, and I talk on the phone a lot too. Mostly Lena. We talk for like 3 or 4 hours. Me and Lena have a really special friendship because, like most friends, we always want to hang out together and stuff. But then my brother usually takes away some of my phone privileges, so. Me and my brother usually argue about, my older brother usually argue about the phone all day. That's my life is on the phone, which my life is ruined at this very moment because I am not on the phone. This is the most amazing thing in the world. My brother is actually doing some work in the house for us. I think I mostly do everything in the house. Well, see, whatever my parents want me to do, we have to do. They're on the spot. And usually all 3 of us takes turn washing the dishes. We usually do our own laundries, and I do my parents' laundries. I have to vacuum a lot, and usually clean up the house whenever they're gone and I'm home from school. All my mom's sisters are here, and I usually have to spend all the time with my aunt because she lives with us. And my mom's sisters, they both live on the south side, and we mostly every Sunday we have church, and we'll go over to their house and eat something there.
This is the Interlengsi resident.
My other cousins, which is my dad's brother, we go there every week or so to usually eat the same thing over and over again at their house because that's my dad's favorite food, and so they usually make that for my dad and his brother, and so we probably go there on the weekdays instead of the weekends. That's not his favorite dish. We spent Thanksgiving over at my mom's sister's house. Everybody's there except for my dad's brothers because they're having it with their mom's sister's family.
Hey! Don't hit the camera, guys.
10. Wait, check our friend. 1, 2.
It's our turn.
This one thing go.
I can't. No, Chris, my money.
I'm going to see that all of you have the time of your lives.
Like us, we have to came to the United States and start a new life, and I enjoy that Thanksgiving. Our church is mean to us a lot. They give us a new life. They give us everything. I got a letter from my sister at the camp, and she say, Mennonite Church is your sponsor. And I say, I don't think at that time I don't know what it means, you know. First came I don't know because I don't have anything. I have only 2 hands. They feel welcome us and warm and care and love us like a daughter or something like that.
This is Eileen Miller. She is our sponsor that brought us to America. I think of her as a grandparent because she's so close to us now because we go to her for everything.
She's my sponsor, but I call her mother, father, because I don't have a father, mother. In Laos too, I don't have right now. I don't have father, mother.
Yes, we were their sponsors, but that only lasts a few weeks that you really need to be a sponsor. After that, you're a friend, and they're part of our family.
In Laos, we believe in Buddha. In here, I believe in God or Jesus, something like that. But every custom, they get the same, like make people good people, not go the wrong way, go the straight way, like God tell us do something. In Buddha, they say like that too, tell go to good people, make it good people.
The youth group, we usually get together once a month, and we wanted to spend the night at a church. And we stayed up all night, just mostly the younger kids did. I think church is really important because it gives me a sense of myself, you know, because I don't know how to word it, but the church is really important to me. It gives me lots of hope because the people that are there are very caring, you know, and they brought me to America.
Okay, Team 6 will start.
I like lots of the teachers, and I like the school atmosphere over at Meredith a lot.
Queen Elizabeth?
That's correct.
I like school because I get to spend time with my friends, and I get a good education so I can become what I want. I want to become a lawyer. The last 3 years, the lowest grades I ever had was, I think, 3 Bs, and the rest As. To me, I think having 2 Bs is really bad, and I always try to get straight As or at least 1 B.
I don't put them real hard like a, you know, I just want them to happy and have a happy family and just have finish the college and then have a nice job, and that's all I want them to be.
During a basketball game, it doesn't matter which color you are, you're a team. And when you're a team, you have to work with each other. Like us, when we're a crowd, there's like lots of color diversity in the crowd. And we're still cheering for the same team, our team, the Meredith Trojans.
Did you get that? Yeah. Well, what a Kodak moment.
My white friends usually get to go out more than I do, but and they get a sleepover at their friend's house, but usually I don't get a sleepover at anybody's house except for my cousin's house. Turn around, that perfect braid. I think it's important to carry around the traditions that we brought to America from Laos, because I want my children to know who they really are, and what our family had to do just to get them here, to have the freedom they have now.
God has a seed. No!
I'm really proud of myself and what I've accomplished since I'm different from most people.
Nice to see you.
Yes.
And I wanted to show how it is, how we're regular Americans, that we're Americans. Doesn't matter what color we are, but we're living in the same country.
First part, I worry about her because I'm scared about I can talk and the English well. I let my daughter to doing this because I want other people want them to understand us. I say, how can you do that? And she say, Mom, don't worry, I can do it. And I want you proud of me. That's why I answer her, yes, okay, go ahead, do it.
Oh, I'm very proud of being black. I'd never want to be any other race. If it started all over again, I asked God to be black again. My name is Tyra Williams, and I'm 17 years old. My daddy is Henry Williams. My mom is Rochelle Williams. My older sister is Smokia Williams. And my younger sister is Rhonda Williams. We came from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We lived in Iowa about 5 years now.
You asked me when we got involved in church, and I told you it was when we came here to Sioux City. But it wasn't because Christ was not in Milwaukee. It's just that we didn't go meet him in Milwaukee.
It's one of the most important things in my life right now. When my wife finally got me to go to church, I don't know, I just found a different way of life. You know, my whole philosophy on living changed. You know, I always thought I knew the direction that I should go, but church taught me that I was walking in the dark, and it keeps me sane.
My church and my religion really means a lot to me because as a person of my age and everything that's going on today with young people, it really helps, you know, it really makes the decisions of what I'm going to do for me.
And there's a whole lot of folk that used to sit on the bar stool beside me. That's right. God chose me, took me off the bar stool. There's a whole lot of folk that used to run around like I ran around, but God chose me.
You know, my pastor say never go any place where you don't want to die at. And so I don't think I like to die at a bar too much, so I won't go there. Some of the things I do in church, like choir and Sunday school, I love to sing. And, you know, and I don't exactly have the voice to sing by myself, so I rather sing mixed up with other people. I like Sunday school a lot because I have one of the best teachers in Sunday school, and she really opens up to us and what it really means and put it in ways that we'd understand. You know, for the past 11 years, I've always been in school with Tomokio, and I've always been Tomokio's little sister.
Well, she was my baby sister, you know what I mean? I didn't want anybody to bother her, you know. Nobody can bother her but me, or they had to talk to me.
This is really the first year I kind of, besides the fact that she's gone, I also kind of got bored with her. And so I really broke off and started doing my own thing now.
I do have a dominant personality, but I didn't, you know, try to enforce it on my sister.
I'm very glad that Tomokio graduated. I am overjoyed that Tomokio graduated.
They're also going to separate college. Tyra is going to Iowa State, if all go well, and Mickey's at Briar Cliff. So they'll even be farther apart, and they'll both get a chance to grow without each other.
Yep. Senior committee, I'm the senior class president. Student council, Students International. There's the school activities. I'm on a school board advisory committee, multicultural committee. And does anyone want to stay after with me and count the money? I think you're winning, Mr. Paul. The thing that draws me to that is I want to have my voice. I want to have some say-so on what goes on at school and what's going on with the things that we're supposed to do. And that's the only way I really can, is getting involved in the governments.
Does this go here? Okay, that still goes there though. All right. Draw the line here.
It was pretty easy for me to get to know people and make new friends when Tomokio graduated because I have the kind of personality that I talk to anyone and everyone. And then people talk back to me, and so I got to know her. You know, we became friends, and now I know everybody.
I work at Hy-Vee food stores, and usually I will work about 10 to 12 hours a week. I really like working there. I try to save up, but it's not working too well right now. I like buy me clothes or just get food. or just mostly wasted most of the time, but I'm trying to save up now
For
college.
I don't mind Tyra working as long as she keeps her grades up in school. I encourage my daughter to save her money for college. Henry and myself can't afford to do too much for her in college. And I always told them that whenever they're little, they're going to college and it's always going to be on your shoulders.
You know, go on and do the best you can and get an education, get a career, because it's very important in the 20th century that black people reach out for careers, reach out for professions.
When I graduate, I plan to go straight to college in July. I want to learn how to talk properly and not be so nervous in front of a lot of people. And just to, you know, maybe pronounce my words correctly and, you know, give speeches in front of a lot of people. After I graduate from college, I plan to work with maybe like people who had strokes or mentally handicapped people and help them with their speech and help them learn to talk again.
Done with the homework, brother? Me too.
Tyra and I get along not too well. Sometimes, like, if she's having a bad day at work, she come home pretty angry and I tease her or something. It's just pretty bad.
It depends on depends on what we're doing. Like when we're cleaning up the room, we don't get along at all. But if I wanted to do something with Rhonda, and it was something that she liked to do, then we'd be just fine, you know.
If they can't do anything else but respect each other, I don't mind them exchanging words with each other in the household, but outside, even if your sister do something that you don't like, you can tell her, but if it's going to make her angry, wait till you get home and talk about it. You must show respect from one another.
As Tyra and Tomokio grew up in school together, we taught them to stick together. Because where we're from, you know, a lot of fights, you know, a lot of people always fights, and I didn't ever want them to run off and leave the other. So we taught them to stick there side by side until you can get to a safe place, and then, you know, with an adult, you know, express what actually takes place.
Okay.
There's a man in the desert who died with a backpack on. How'd he die?
To describe the family time together, it's not very often we get to, it's like everyone. But when we do get together, we do some crazy stuff. We kind of like mess around, like me and my daddy and my sisters would gang up on my mom and mess with her, or vice versa. It's kind of funny, but it's kind of different.
Okay, tell us what happened.
He was a parachuter, his parachute is over.
Hi, this is my wife, and this is her favorite spot. All of us have a sense of humor, every one of us. I don't know where we get it. Probably from my wife. But
Help us. Help us. We're being abused.
he lives.
No! Okay. Ooh, didn't know that
We like to laugh, and that's the thing. When somebody's having a bad day, if you make them, you know, express how they feel about that day, then, you know, you can move on and make things different for the day. So we challenge each other a lot. So it calls for a lot of laughing, a lot of anger, fighting, you know, but it's together we try and share our emotions with each other. We're just a family just trying to survive in the world.
We're black, but we're not aliens. You know, we do the same thing as,
is it good?
You know, as any other family would do. Everything in our house is not you know, it's not always gonna revolve around black. You know, I mean, like, it is one of the big things, but, you know, we have our religion, we have our family time. It's not separate, but it's not always, we're only going to watch The Cosby Show. We're not going to watch Little House on the Prairie because they don't have any black people on that show. And so, you know, we're just, you know, we're not average, but we're not, like I said, aliens either.
Some of the values that I want my kids to always to carry with them is to respect yourself. Always have respect for yourself, because that's something nobody can take away from you. They can disrespect you, but they can never take your respect away from you. When I send my daughters outside into the public, I want them to be treated with respect and dignity, because I teach them to treat people with respect and dignity.
If you've really got true self-respect, you're going to respect other people because you know they're entitled to the same thing you're entitled to. It's pretty simple stuff.
No country survives divided. The country has to be united. We all have to be part of the American dream. And there has to be an American dream there for us to look at. Right now, there's very few people that can look at that American dream because they can't reach it.
I was a freshman in college, and I remember I was laying on my bed taking a nap. Our rooms were set up like suites, so there were 4 people to a suite with a dividing restroom here. And I was lying in bed listening to the people over here. We always kept our doors open. And my roommate was in that room, and one of the girls said, "How can you have a black roommate?" And my roommate said, "What are you talking about?" And she said, "Well, don't they smell?" And my roommate said, "No." And she said, "Well, where's she hiding her tail?" I laid on the bed, and I got tears in my eyes. Because you start thinking, it's 1984, for crying out loud. I mean, where has this woman been? I mean, she keeps seeing people on TV. Does she want to know where they're tucking those tails? It was funny on one hand, but it was so depressing that in that time, people would still think that. And I brought it up to people later and have found that that is not rare for people to think that. One woman was at a professional conference, and there was a woman who thought that there. So it's not at all rare. But it's just enough to make you put your teeth together and say, when is it going to stop?
Since I'm half white and half Indian, I've gotten, I've had problems from both sides. I remember one time one of my teachers was saying something to me, and I was just listening to her. I was looking at the desk, and I was listening to her, and she grabbed my head and jerked it up, and she said, "Look at me when I'm talking to you," and I think that it's disrespectful to them. They take it as disrespectful because we're not looking at them, and that's not our way. It is respectful not to look at the elder, the person who's speaking to you.
But see, a lot of times, we have a local view, where we lived. Then, the parents' culture will subscribe the meaning of our culture. That's all we know. What they don't realize is if you see the world that way, you miss a lot. And also, that prohibits to develop the capacity to create. So actually, you are losing. Yeah, you are not gaining.
Being Hispanic and a professional, you can't separate one and the other. It's a role that is intertwined. Collegially, you may be as qualified as the next person, as competent as well-read as your next colleague. But being Hispanic and associated to a minority group always leaves you suspect, and you're conscious of it. And what I mean by suspect, that either consciously or unconsciously, you're always measuring up. I don't know of any professional, whether you be a policeman, an attorney, or a physician, you're always suspect. Take Iowa as an example. Would a rural majority farmer entrust his family's trust fund to a minority accountant? It's questionable. It's suspect. Would a rural individual majority come to Mercy Hospital and expect to have heart surgery from a physician who spoke with an accent? What would be the caliber of acceptance? These are the kinds of things that we live with continually. Every single day that you wake up, it's not necessarily a role that you put on, but merely something that you just take with you. Many Hispanics, I would say, have that same kind of dilemma.
I used to teach mathematics at one stage and science at secondary school level. And I remember every time they will have in the books some theory in mathematics or some equation or some scientific principle that is discovered by somebody, and they showed an image of a discoverer. Without fail, the images used to be white males, always. And I knew for a fact that there were fundamental principles in mathematics that were developed not in European cultures, but in Indian cultures, in Middle Eastern cultures, in African cultures, and so on. And you never got that image presented.
As you know, being an Asian American in this country, it's very hard to explain the feeling that you have when you are trying to get the services that you need in this country, because there is a lot of barrier. First, the language barrier is the problem, because most of the people newly arrived in this country, their English is very limited. And they are reluctant to seek help because they cannot explain clearly what their need is. And, in Asian country, if they have a problem, they usually go to their relative in order to get help, rather than seek help from the outside. Because saving face and shame is the problem for Asian people.
I think if we can recognize that we're all not perfect, that we're all the sinners from a spiritual standpoint, that no one is perfect. So if we recognize that we all have something that is wrong with us, so it's okay to say that we all in this world, we are prejudiced. Some blacks don't like blacks, some blacks don't like whites, whites don't like whites, whites don't like blacks. But the bottom line is we need to recognize that in order for us to move into the 21st century, we have a legacy of bad confrontations between the races. If we can start working together to ensure that our kids can have a decent lifestyle, that's what I'm talking about. Let's call a spade a spade. I'm a racist, you're a racist. Now, how can we bridge the gap? That's how I mean that.
Raceophobia is when you're afraid to confront students of other cultures, especially African American or black students, because you're afraid you're going to be called racist. And when that happens, it's because you don't care enough to go the exercise to maybe take that risk, because some students may call you racist, but the majority are going to be glad because you care enough about them as another student to treat them like any other student, to confront them when they're not doing right and to praise them when they're doing good. Because as we well know, people that you really love and care about, those are the people that you confront the most because you're willing to give them that time.
The ironic thing that I find too is that a lot of times school systems, especially in Iowa, I found this, don't think they have any Indians. My middle daughter, they thought she was Italian, even though she told them. My youngest daughter told a teacher she was Turtle Mountain Chippewa and Ponca, and the teacher argued with her for 30 minutes. So she took her enrollment papers to school the next day and said, look at these. Well, there aren't no Indians in Iowa. Or the only Indians in Iowa are over on that settlement or that thing over there by Tama. They don't even know what that is, you know. And so it's very degrading to the child to think that they're dealing with an ignorant person who has the force to put that ignorance on them.
When you see someone who is not Caucasian, no matter what ethnic groups, if they speak fluent English, you think he is intelligent, or at least to you he is intelligent, and someone who speaks broken English, to you he is ignorant. Yeah, but how about his own language, native language? He may be very intelligent and very cultured, but you judge that person by how well he or she speaks English.
One of the difficult things to deal with as a black person in a racist society is to deal with the question about whether you have in fact achieved something because you achieved it, or whether you achieved it because somebody has a quota to fill. And it's a hell of a thing, you know, to have this, to always wonder about this, you know, to always really wonder.
The same things you go through, the same things that the dominant culture goes through, I am going through. I mean, I have worries, I have concerns, I have bills, I have a family. I shop at JCPenney just like you. You don't have to think that, well, there she is, and I'm pretty sure that for dinner she wants a plate of greens and cornbread and chitlins, and she wants to douse it all with ketchup. I'm just like you. If you treat me just like you treat your sister or anybody else, that's all it takes. You don't have to make any special concessions for me. Just treat me like a person.
I think the biggest thing that Iowans could do is to, first of all, try to better understand American Indians. Second of all, try to respect them to a much higher degree than they do. And then, if anything, try to learn more about themselves, their own tribal backgrounds, their own history, their own genetics, you know. One of the problems we have in Iowa is that we're still stuck in this idea that we're all the same, and we're not. If you don't know who you are, then there's no way you're going to understand who I am. There's just no way. In the same way, if I don't know who I am, there's no way I can even have a glimpse of what you are. And so I think that's very important. I think the main thing that I see in Iowa is that we're just at that beginning to understand stage, to realize that it might be important to learn about other groups. Again, I think African Americans, Asian Americans, Hispanics, Arab Americans have the same dilemma. They don't exist in Iowa.
Major funding for this program was provided by Friends of Iowa Public Television.